name is Rita Lara, and I am a fundraising coach and consultant.
My name is Aixa Beauchamp, and I have about 20 plus years experience working in the foundations and philanthropic community.
The topic is resource management, which is a really big topic to discuss in about an hour. There are so many different systems and processes and protocols that are involved in supporting resource development in an organization. And when those aren't in place, essentially what happens is organizations become really strapped, and towards the mid-year or the end of their fiscal year, they're sort of doing the fundraising scramble, and they're overwhelmed, they're taxed, they're tapping their personnel resources, they're tapping their programmatic resources. That's when having all of these systems in place really becomes really, really important.
When I spoke today, I spoke about two concepts in terms of the conceptual framework and the organizational framework. And these two frameworks help drive that resource management piece. The organizational framework we discussed is the 7 foundational pillars, which is governance and leadership, finance and sustainability, program development, communications. But all these are the pillars, kind of what that drives the organizational framework and the conceptual framework. Those two, when you have them in place, create good resource management plans. And the reason we're not calling it a fundraising plan, because the fundraising plan is more like a work plan of how you're going to get the money. The resource management plan helps you dig in deeper and talk about values and talk about belief systems and talk about a mission, vision, and talk about what drives us. One of the first steps in the presentation I gave was analysis of the problem or the issue. What are you trying to fix? What are you trying to get at? That's usually the first step in any creation of an organization. And the logic models is really kind of a guide for just how do you do that. And it has things like, inputs and activities and outputs and short-term outcomes and long-term outputs. And what it does is it helps you get at the underlying assumptions for how to reach that theory of change, how to reach that outcome that you want in that theory of change, but lays it step by step.
It really essentially helps you to articulate what you do and why you do it and how you do it to a funder. And they will ask. And they might even ask about your model as well. So it's good to have one in place.
So one of the documents that I made available was when we were talking about strategic partnership and using your board. And I call it the ABC organization. And it really is a very, very simple tool for engaging your board in this conversation about resource development. And it has things like, their contacts and connections, how are you going to be connected to them, how can they open up those opportunities for you, how can we engage you more on the board, how can we use you as a tool for also helping us thank our donors and how to be able to do that stewardship. That's one of the documents. The other one was around the tiered approach, which I'm going to have Rita speak a little bit about.
Sure. In sort of managing your relationships with donors, if you have lots of donors giving at different levels, that can be a really big task. It's very labor intensive. You might have different people managing different relationships depending on how much they're giving. If you're looking at a small shop, it's like, okay, there's 3 of us. How are we going to do all this? Well, having a tiered approach really helps you to prioritize how you engage with donors, how you continue cultivating and stewarding those relationships, because it's important. So by tiered, I mean, you have, 2 or 3 tiers, people giving your top level gifts. Say it's a 5 or a 6-figure gift. They might be your sort of priority tier because you really rely on their generosity and support. And so you sort of package the kind of ways you're going to communicate with them. So maybe those donors, they get at least 5 points of contact throughout the year. One of them is a visit, one might be a phone call. They all get the newsletter. They all get at least, one email update, and so they get regular communication from the organization. And it ensures that everyone is getting the attention that they need, that all the donors are engaged and supported, and no one's falling through the crack.
With resources so tight, it's becoming harder and harder for the institutions to raise money. And one of the things that other funders and corporations and donors want to know is your board contributing? And how are they contributing? What way are they contributing? And not just contributing by giving you, whatever dollars they give you, but how are they connecting you to those networks and associations and others?
When our board members don't respond or don't follow through, especially on something relating to fundraising, they might say, well, I'm a bit inundated, I'm busy, I'm swamped, or it might show up in different ways, but, ultimately it's a fear around asking for money. So the how is, really engaging people in the conversation that does a couple things. So unpacks the resistance, names, whatever the fear is around supporting fundraising or asking for money, shows them how to do it. How do you have this conversation? Allows them an opportunity to practice it. Let's practice. Sort of role playing becomes important. It's almost like the cross section between like therapy and fundraising. But it's important and it needs to happen and it works.